Good evening, America, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. My co-host, Amanda Head, she'll be here in a little bit. She was over on pool duty at the White House. That's a prestigious thing. You're in charge of feeding all the media, all the events of the day. And during a press conference with President Trump, she got 1, 2, 3, or maybe even 4 questions in on behalf of Just the News. She's going to rejoin us later in the show, and she'll bring us up to speed on all that exciting stuff. Now, we've got a great show ahead, Maria. It's pretty much an accountability show. That's what we love to do here. Tonight's a special night. First, before I tell you who our guests are, and we got some good ones, let me tell you about 2 stories that when you wake up in the morning should be at the top of Just the News. 2 accountability stories. We know from a long time now that Jerry Dunleavy, who's one of our great reporters here, has known a lot about the bungled Afghan withdrawal that Joe Biden mishandled back 4 years ago. Today is the 4th anniversary of the loss of life of 13 brave men and women in our armed forces at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan. One of the more painful moments in that embarrassing withdrawal. Tomorrow, we're going to tell you about some of the things that Congress and the government have known about for a long time. Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, keeps saying not enough people were held accountable inside the Pentagon. He's got an effort underway to do that. We're going to tell you about some of the information you didn't know about, you weren't told about. You're going to start at the very top of the military with the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Tomorrow's story will lay out some explosive new facts, new information, so you can make up your mind about what really happened and who is to blame for that tragedy. We're still paying for it years later. As you know, foreign policy has never been the same since the Afghan withdrawal, though President Trump is trying to restore those problems. A second story will be by myself and my great colleague, Stephen Richards. In the morning, we're going to tell you that shortly after James Comey waved a magic wand and said that there would be no prosecution of Hillary Clinton for using a personal email server to move classified information to do government business on a private email server in violation of the rules and possibly of the law, his own FBI had a personal email problem. That's right. They were using personal email for a possible unauthorized leak to the media. You're going to see those documents for the first time tomorrow. We're going to write about it tomorrow. So 2 big accountability stories to kick off tomorrow morning's report. Be sure to check them out at justthenews.com or download the Just the News apps from the Apple App Store and the Android Google Play Store. Now, we got 2 great guests at the top of the show who've been at the heart of so much of the accountability reporting we've done here. In a few seconds, we're going to talk to Mike Benz, the founder of the Foundation for Freedom Online, the man who exposed the industrial censorship complex in America. And then in the second block, we're going to bring you an exclusive report from the Oversight Project and Mike Howell on new developments in the Joe Biden auto pen scandal, the Joe Biden memory and mental acuity scandal that is growing every day. Some pretty remarkable things that he turned up, including evidence that the Justice Department, the Biden Justice Department, was worried that the pardons that Joe Biden was not signing off on personally, but just giving other people the ability to do, might not be legal. There was a legal issue. We're going to get to both of that. But just a little while ago, before he headed on the road, I had a great conversation with Mike Benz. I want you to watch it. We talked about a lot. All right, folks, we got the perfect guest to kick off tonight's show. Joining us from the Foundation of Freedom Online, which he founded. He's the champion of free speech and the man who helped illuminate all of us about the dangers of the industrial censorship complex. Our good friend, Mike Benz. Mike, good to have you back.
Great to see you, John.
All right, over the last few weeks, we've had a chance to appreciate some of the transparency that President Trump and Tulsi Gabbard and Pam Bondi and particularly Kash Patel have made available to the public. And we get a sense of just how large the Obama-Biden weaponization machinery was. I know you've been reading this. You've done your own great work on this. How bad was this weaponization?
It was unbelievable. And at Just the News, you guys just put up this piece, 10 most important revelations about the Obama-Biden era of weaponization. And it's a fantastic kind of rundown of all of the vast abuses that took place. To me, the thing that sticks out most is still the classified annex and the revelations about the Soros, the Open Society Institute, and their plot to use the critical infrastructure hoax, which ended up turning into CISA at DHS and censorship of the internet in tandem with the George Soros NGOs doing the disinformation. So it all fits together like a glove. And I should note that George Soros that very month also met personally with Hillary Clinton at the State Department while they were cooking this plan up. But the focus, I think what Tulsi and Cash have been doing with these revelations around Russiagate and around declassifying classified documents has been amazing. But we are still lacking one very, very critical underside of the semi-classified iceberg, and that is USAID. As folks know, last month USAID shut down on July 1st. It was absorbed by the State Department, but we still have no revelations. We have more transparency about the CIA and the FBI than we do about the humanitarian aid organization, so-called humanitarian aid organization, USAID. That cannot stand. This White House is flying blind on foreign policy until they actually can reconstruct what was done by previous administrations through USAID.
Yeah, and I remind everybody, USAID was one of the many places that Hunter Biden had his finger in, helping Burisma get a relationship there through their different players. You mentioned Hillary Clinton meeting with Soros. Was that Hillary Clinton, or was that at the State Department, or was that Victoria Nuland? I can't remember in 16.
It was Hillary Clinton. Yep.
Wow.
It was.
I didn't realize that.
She was no longer Secretary of State.
Right.
They met together with the head of the Open Society Institute Eurasia Center, which was implicated in the classified annex. So, and it makes perfect sense because Soros has billions of dollars invested in Eurasia, and foreign policy lines, the foreign policy set by the State Department, the intelligence community, the defense sector, and the aid sector goes to pad George Soros's profits. I actually ran an analysis in Brazil.
That's amazing.
As George Soros teamed up with USAID in Brazil, and I ran an analysis, and it showed that if Bolsonaro in Brazil had stayed president under the policies of the Bolsonaro administration, his portfolio would have only gone up about $5 million over the 3 years since then. But under the Lula administration, it went up over a quarter of $1 billion because of all of the government mandates that helped Soros companies. For example, Soros has invested in the clean energy space, and Lula, the first thing he did was install these ethanol fuel mandates that all helped Soros portfolio companies. This is the Soros strategy in Ukraine. It's the Soros strategy in Eurasia, in South and Central America. And so you see this partnership between the State Department, USAID, and George Soros at every corner. So in the same way that Harvard is a hedge fund with a university attached, I think the best way to understand the Open Society Institute is a hedge fund with a philanthropy attached. But the fact is I don't believe that Secretary Rubio or President Trump can understand what they are up against in Brazil or in Europe with the EU Digital Censorship Act until they have the USAID files about disinformation, digital resilience, misinformation, media literacy, information integrity. All of these search terms can be immediately run by the Foreign Assistance Branch of the State Department, and they should do a Tulsi style. Here's 85,000 pages worth of documents, the same way Tulsi did it. Let them compete against each other for the best in the business. State versus ODNI.
Yeah, and FBI, let me tell you, FBI is dropping a lot of stuff. I mean, Tulsi and the FBI have probably revealed more secrets in the last month than we had in the first 8 years of the scandal. It's pretty remarkable. I want to go back to something because it's very important, and you have done this better than anyone. The ability to pull off the Russia collusion story, or the Ukraine impeachment story, or the Hunter Biden disinformation story wouldn't have been possible if there wasn't a censorship complex alongside of the actors. So, all right, they're putting out a fake story, and those of us who try to tell the story, we get put out as conspiracy theorists, we get censored, but it wouldn't have been completely achievable if the censorship machine hadn't been put in place. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Not only that, the censorship machine was put in place because of this op. They not only used the censorship to get away with the crime of the century, but they actually used the crime of the century in order to install the censorship, because it was the idea that that this was not just a regular ordinary course dispute governed by the First Amendment. This was something special. It was a counterintelligence, national security, just in the same way that typically the government is open and transparent in the sense that you can do FOIAs and find things on usaspending.gov, but when it's classified, you're not allowed to see it.
Right.
This is essentially what they did to speech. And then when Russiagate ran out in the summer of 2019, they transitioned to this democracy predicate, and USAID went on to take so much of the linchpin for that under its democracy promotion capacity. But they used that as that was how the CIA and FBI and DHS and all of their funded, sponsored NGOs took over the trust and safety teams at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Reddit. It was through this idea that there was a Russiagate. So this basically allowed them to get away with
James Baker, right?
crime.
James Baker, the former FBI general counsel, he goes to Twitter, doesn't he? James Baker.
It's exactly what he does, and then uses that perch to run the Hunter laptop op while he was also doing the National Task Force for Election Crises. And this was this idea because they used Russiagate to say that elections themselves were critical infrastructure. So therefore, the federal government, rather than the states, could administer elections. And then they said any speech online that impacts elections and contains disinformation is now an attack on critical infrastructure. And so this is how they got to control all speech all year round over this idea that anything impacts the democratic process. And then they went to Brazil and got the judges in charge of elections to be able to censor speech on the basis of, well, that speech might impact an election, so you can't call the president corrupt. Now that's illegal. You can't point out this scandal. They're doing the same thing in Romania, all across the EU. There was a formal State Department USAID strategy to go after EMBs, election management bodies, the courts and judges that decide elections, in order to get them to add censorship to their legal repertoire of what they could nuke from orbit.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, you mentioned it briefly, but it's so important. We got about a minute and a half left. I just want to ask, the FBI knows in advance that Hillary Clinton is going to put this op into place. They know that the FBI is expected to legitimize it by investigating it. That's what the Russians had. That's what the CIA had. The FBI assessed that that information was not disinformation. And then the FBI does it. If the FBI doesn't open up on Hillary Clinton's the Steele dossier or the stuff from Australia, this scandal probably becomes a very different, or probably just a dirty trick that didn't go anywhere, right?
Oh, completely. And they used word games, not the letter or spirit of the law, to get them out of this at every turn. If you remember, this was the same James Comey who they indicted President Trump for, quote, mishandling classified documents. But Hillary Clinton smashed her subpoenaed phones with a hammer and used the so-called bleach bit, destroyed everything while under subpoena. And it was that same James Comey who not only covered up Russiagate, but covered for her by creating a brand new legal standard that would have been illegal under the standard of gross negligence. But he came up with the new legal standard called extreme recklessness, saying it's something less than gross negligence. Extreme recklessness actually sounds a lot worse to me than gross negligence, but if you just simply arose by any other name, is evidently not a crime.
It's amazing. Yeah, and then we learned that he, James Comey, was authorizing classified leaks according to these FBI documents, as was Adam Schiff. And of course, they, like Hillary Clinton, paid no accountability price. Really remarkable. Mike, you are amazing. All the work you do. I can't wait to have you back on again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John. And just one last thing. Of all the people you just listed for mishandling classified documents, the only person to ever be charged for it was President Donald Trump.
Isn't it amazing? That's the only one. Yeah, you're exactly right. Mike, as always, what a great conversation. Appreciate you so much. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, a second dose of good accountability. Mike Howell's going to join us. He's doing some great work on the auto pen in the Biden scandal. We'll have that next, right after these messages.
Tell me me the truth. How many different beauty potions do you have sitting on your bathroom counter right now? If it's more than just Vibrant Super C Serum, listen up. The ingredients in this one bottle can replace your day creams, your eye creams, your night creams, your neck creams, your wrinkle creams, and your dark spot reducers. It's made in the USA with the highest quality ingredients, including vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, vitamin B5, and vitamin E. Super C Serum delivers noticeable results. Simplify your skincare routine, get a healthier complexion, and minimize wrinkles and age spots with Vibrance. And if you don't find it better than your current skincare routine, you'll get a full refund. So go to Vibrance.com/justnews to save up to 37% off and free shipping. That is Vibrance, Vibrance, Vibrance.com/justnews.
Welcome back, America. So many things to discuss. Last week, some bombshells that came out about what we knew about Justice Department, or didn't know, I should say, about Justice Department interference or concerns in Joe Biden's wave of pardons at the end of his presidency. The man who helped uncover that and a whole lot more is joining us right now. He's the head of the Oversight Project, does some of the best investigative journalism in America. Our good friend, Mike Howell. Mike, good to have you on.
Hey, great to be with you guys.
All right, I want to get to your big scoop, but before we do that, I want to just take a look back. You've lived in this city a while. You know D.C. has made decades of excuses about why it couldn't clean up crime. Then Donald Trump comes in like 2 weeks. Crime is cleaned up in a really big way. How transformational is what's going on in D.C., and does it have a long tail to other cities?
Well, I hope it is transformational. It's still very early. Under the Home Rule Act, which this is all about, it's a 50-year-old statute. So it is the exception to the rule where DC basically has local government. We're about 2 weeks into President Trump taking advantage of a 30-day window of that. And so he's going to run up against the clock and need either a congressional extension of it or some sort of emergency authorities to maintain it. But for it to be transformational, we need to see the staying power. And so what they've done should absolutely be commended. Of course, I'm greedy. I want them to go even further. I want them to take full control over the Metropolitan Police Department. I want to see the footprint expanded into a lot of the more crime-ridden areas, particularly that border with Maryland and Prince George's County, Southeast DC, Anacostia. A little less focus in kind of the lower crime areas that we've seen. And ultimately, and here's the key, I want to see home rule challenged on a constitutional basis. Most legal scholars that have looked at this think it is an unconstitutional delegation, since the Constitution speaks to exclusive federal control over Washington, D.C. And so I hope President Trump and his DOJ continues the pace and then challenges it so they can permanently take control of it and get it under control. Because right now is just a couple weeks of, we'll call it a truce, a partnership. I don't want a partnership. I want complete federal control and a complete cleanup.
Yeah.
Important.
All right, up against the argument of constitutionality, if President Trump takes this treatment to other blue cities, how is it going to look for mayors like Brandon Johnson in Chicago and Karen Bass in LA, whose cities run rampant with crime? How is it going to look if they fight the president on constitutionality when a lot of people in their city who maybe are typical Democrat voters are really begging for the safety?
Yeah, I think it's going to look like the last about decade of the Democrat Party on loop. Look, the political leadership of the left cannot escape the radical control that's held over it, even on matters that are just core meat and potatoes, governance issues like law and order. And so you'll see the political machinery in a place like Chicago, which is one of the most corrupt regions in the entire United States, still fight tooth and nail and use, as much legacy media cover as they can to try to say somehow this is a federal overreach, whereas it is not. It is squarely within President Trump's, responsibilities to take care that the laws be enforced. And there's a lot of criminal activity with the federal nexus in Chicago particularly. And there's also other sticks and carrots that can be used. The nature of the relationship between the feds and these major urban areas. And so if they want to resist and go down on the altar of rapists and murderers and other violent carjackers and the like, then they can continue the Democrats' parties just spiral downwards. You see the voter registration numbers declining. It's going to be left with just a few radicals and a lot of money and no voters if they keep this up.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Mike, I want to talk about the bombshell that you dropped last week that senior officials inside the Justice Department had grave concerns about the legality of the categorical pardons that Joe Biden was giving out at the end of his presidency. Tell us one more, remind everybody what you found, why it's important, and what the next steps may be in litigating this.
Absolutely. So ever since we launched our findings in March about the widespread illegal use of the auto pen, particularly for pardons, a lot of critics have said, hey, you're going to need to find some divergence within the Biden camp. Someone's going to have to turn. And frankly, some of them have in, Chairman Comer's interviews. But what we released last week was black and white. It was an email from President Biden's top career official, one of Merrick Garland's most trusted guys at the Department of Justice. And so essentially, on January 17th, Biden issued, allegedly, because, it's the auto pen after all, historic levels of 2,500 plus pardons and commutations of what he called nonviolent drug offenders. Fast forward to the next morning, Saturday morning, the senior DOJ, Bradley Weinsheimer, sends a lengthy and pointed email to the White House. And I'll just pause right there. If you've worked in D.C., you're familiar. You don't put those things in writing unless you feel really strongly. We have a saying around here that, that could have been a phone call. So this guy felt so strongly what was happening was wrong. He, whether it was a CYA on his end or trying to keep his bar license or a patriotic duty, I don't know. But basically, Bradley Weinsheimer went through how legally fraught these were and pointed out things about how the Department of Justice couldn't effectuate them because they were so vaguely written. And second, the most logical interpretation of it would include violent criminals. And he proceeded to list the violent criminals. And guess what? Those people who killed cops, who killed witnesses, who attacked children were released under this, grand sweep of pardons for quote unquote nonviolent criminals. And so here's what can happen next. The silver lining in such an ugly period of history. Since Biden commuted some of these sentences, which means shortening them, some of them are still in federal prison. And, we've been long asking for the DOJ to take a hack at this auto pen mess. And I think the cleanest shot they could take to get started is to not release any more of these individuals. And they don't have to agree with the Oversight Project to do it. They can agree with Biden's own Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Okay, so I just want to be clear. The issue of constitutionality, does it lie with the volume of pardons, the nature of the crimes, the manner in which it was done, obviously via auto pen, all three other things? Where does the constitutionality issue hit?
Yeah, first and foremost, on the issue of the auto pen and whether Biden was aware of who he was pardoning. Only Biden, only the president can issue a pardon. President Biden admitted to the New York Times about a month ago in response to the volume we turned up on this investigation that he did not go through and issue these commutations or pardons. He said he set broad categories and then had staff go in and fill in the blanks. Enter the auto pen. And so in Biden's own words, they're entirely unconstitutional. Second to that, what this DOJ lawyer is saying is you can't even enforce these because of the vagueness of the document that purported to be from the president and what its interpretations would be. It was, in other words, without legal meaning. You couldn't effectuate it. And so even if the pardons were constitutional, they were still unworkable. And then, furthermore, he keeps asking in this email, and it doesn't say auto pen in there, but if you read between the lines, it's talking about the auto pen. He says, we need to hear from the president about his intent on these things, because what is in that statement from the White House about nonviolent does not match the piece of paper you sent over. This is so out of control. We need to hear directly from the commander in chief. And so it's all about the auto pen.
All right, you just highlighted two very important constitutional legal issues. One, the idea that Joe Biden now admits he didn't approve every single pardon. He did it in broad categories. And two, that the Constitution is pretty clear about the federal city being a federal city. Does your fine group, which has won a lot of important lawsuits, do you weigh in and perhaps initiate this next round of litigation?
as it relates to Washington, D.C., we have asked the court there leave to get involved in the case. And
Wow.
we have that. We have an option to weigh in, particularly because DOJ did not raise the constitutionality of home
They
rule
didn't.
when they reached their settlement agreement with the MPD
That's
in
right.
Washington, D.C. We were disappointed in that. I don't know all the calculations that went into it, but a lot of people raised their eyebrows because even the federal judge overseeing the case looked to the
Yep.
Department of Justice and said, hey, do you guys have any constitutional objections here? And to everyone's surprise, DOJ said no. And so we can't let that stand. I mean, this is a constitutional issue. So the case is, for a lack of a better term, stayed right now. But as we approach that, 30-day deadline and kind of the lack of cooperation we're already seeing from MPD,
Yep.
for instance, they're watering down a lot of the immigration enforcement stuff. I expect the litigation to go live again. And if and when it does, the Oversight Project will be there to assert the claims that we think should be central to this, and that's the constitutionality. As it relates to the auto pen, we're doing as much as we possibly can to put this stuff on a silver platter, but it's ultimately the Department of Justice who will have to litigate these, either by not releasing these folks from prison or by charging the likes of Adam Schiff and the January 6th committee for the funky pardons, which, by the way, a little flashback here, it is those same people who argued in the January 6th concept that when somebody
I do
receives a
remember that.
pardon, it is an admission of guilt. So they've already pled guilty. So it should be an easy case.
Funky pardons. I like that.
Good stuff all around. Mike, I love all the great work you do at the Oversight Project. It is a great public service. Can't wait to watch what's next. Thanks for joining us today, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we love it. We love it. All right, folks, quick commercial break. More right after these messages. Welcome back, America. And look who joined me. She's back from the White House where she got 4 questions into President Trump during a public event today. Amanda Head is here. She's going to lean right in on this next interview. Joining us now, a great legal expert who's got a fantastic show out in Las Vegas called What's Right Show. I love that title. Sam Morosky. Sam, good to have you on.
Hey, pleasure to be with you guys.
I love your show. I love all the work you do. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, what are Democrats up with? They seem to be opposing the president in the courts a lot about things that are 70, 80% issues in the polling. America's want it done, and Democrats are actually trying to trip it up. Are they just misreading the polls?
I think so, John. And look, there is obviously this is the Democratic strategy, right? You've lost the election. You don't have Congress. You're out of power. So you're going to go to the federal courts and you're going to file these challenges. And they have been numerous, right? There's almost 300 legal challenges, individual cases and actions filed in just, since the beginning of Trump's term. This is wild stuff. Lots of cases on immigration, lots of cases on crime. These are popular issues with the American public. So I think, I think that you're seeing these cases, many of them get disposed of as they go up through to the Court of Appeals. And so it's slowing down the administration a touch, but some of it really seems to be a futile effort as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Sam, D.C. looks very, very different recently thanks to the National Guard being here. It's so much safer. I want to ask you a legal and also a policy question for Democrats, or I guess a strategy question for Democrats. There will be legal issues along the way if President Trump tries to put National Guard troops in these cities that do not fall under the home rule here in Washington, D.C. But if mayors oppose it, instead of saying, yes, please come and help us make our city safer, don't they run the risk of looking like they are pro-crime to their constituents?
Well, of course. And by the way, when it comes to home rule and Trump's authority, Trump will have to get, after 30 days, basically approval from Congress. So Congress can extend this. And, so I'm watching much more closely what the reaction's going to be from congressmen from the Senate. I think, there's a strong likelihood that Trump will get the support there. Now, as for the Democrats running D.C. and the Democrats running every other blue city that's devolved into a crime cesspool, I think that the Democratic strategy has been from the onset to bring this blight to cities in order to create more dependency and shore up, Democratic political power. I think it's really that, nakedly obvious as what they're doing. So I'm not certain that this is going to get through to Democrats. It's going to cause some sort of, ideological or political pivot. I think they're going to keep doing what they're doing. It's part of their, plan, and it's worked well for them up until this point. But Trump is showing them up and saying, look, this doesn't have to be a crime-ridden nightmare. You can, just with a little bit of political will and exercising your authority, you can quickly bring about significant change.
Amazing. I have a funny feeling that the next big ruling that will get quickly to the Supreme Court will be the way the Abrigo Garcia case is litigated. All right. So they offer this guy a plea deal. He would get a great deal to Costa Rica, right? He would have been deported to Costa Rica, not a bad place to get kicked out of or kicked out to. And yet he turns it down, and he has been arrested for a crime. Usually, if you're arrested for a crime, you don't have to be convicted before you're ousted. They're suing to block this. A judge is blocking it. Is that judge going to get overturned as we move up the food chain in the court system?
Absolutely. The administration is perfectly within their rights to get rid of this guy. By the way, you're right. What an idiot. I mean, he could have had La Pura Vida down there in Costa Rica. Instead, he gets Uganda. There might be a challenge to where he's being sent, but I think basically, broad strokes, he's not in good shape legally, and this is just an effort to delay this and to use it for political fodder. But this is just politically, this is the wrong guy to make the face of your resistance to Trump. This is not a good dude. So the whole thing has been a head scratcher for me, and I think a losing argument for the Democratic Party.
All right, I want to ask you about redistricting. You've got California suing the Trump administration suing California, Texas getting sued, lawsuits all over the place. Does it ultimately end up at the Supreme Court and get settled there, or does the redistricting / gerrymandering, depending on which party it is, does that just continue and the fight goes on?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So if we're going to talk about California, there was just a case filed, I think today or yesterday, by the Republicans in the Assembly. All right, so the 12 Republicans in the state legislature, it's more than that, but basically very few of them, filed a lawsuit to the California Supreme Court because this is, there's some procedural problems that this has. I don't know what the Supreme Court in California, I expect fully that the Supreme Court in California will side with Newsom. Okay, so that itself is a futile effort. Is there a federal constitutional question here that would be appealed to the Supreme Court of the United States? And I'm not exactly certain, because this matter has everything to do with the California Constitution. So I don't see the SCOTUS taking this up. The plaintiffs might find some unique constitutional arguments by which to get the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, to look at this. But, that's the big challenge to it. It's not a done deal. It still has to pass a special election. 50% plus one have to vote this thing in. A lot of Californians are upset about it. So, we'll see. But at the end of the day, again, it's just Gavin Newsom may win this battle. I don't think he's going to win the war, given all the red states that are going to do the same thing and basically wash this all away.
I think you're right. Earlier in the show, we had the Oversight Project, and they're doing some great work looking at all of the issues with the pardons and the use of the auto pen for legislation and other things. They believe there's a constitutional challenge, one that actually the Biden Justice Department themselves actually raised in an internal memo that was made public in the last couple of days, that maybe Joe Biden just giving classes and saying, you guys decide who it is, might be challengeable. Do you think there's a case ripe to go to all the way up to the Supreme Court on whether Biden's pardons are legal?
Yeah, sure. And I do. And I think the way that controversy gets created, and Trump is in control here, is if they were to file charges, the DOJ were to file charges against a a recipient of one of these dubious, at best, pardons. So suppose for a minute that Schiff, related to stuff that he did with the January 6th Select Committee, that he gets charged for that, and his lawyer will come in and say, well, we've got this pardon, and the Trump lawyers, the DOJ lawyers, will say, well, no, you don't, because it's not valid. And now you have a controversy that can make its way up through the courts, and it's core Article 2 powers. So I mean, I think, John, it's ripe for review, and it's a matter of great importance. So I would not be surprised at all if through some kind of mechanism or path like that, it gets up to the SCOTUS.
Can we imagine a Trump v. Schiff case? That could be a big one. I'd love to. I think there'd be a lot of spectators in the Supreme Court for that. Sam, real quickly, how do people watch your great show? I love the great work you do.
Well, thank you. So we're all over the podcast. We got a local show, great local show in Las Vegas, but we talk about national issues at What's Right Sam on Twitter. So that's where you find me.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing your insights today. Great to have you on the show. We'll get you back on real soon.
Keep up the good work, John. Love it.
We'll try. Thank you, sir. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to discuss about being more mobile and how it can affect your health more than you think. We'll talk about it in our weekly health segment up next. Welcome back, everybody. Time for our Just the News Weekly Health Update. I love this topic. And today we have a forgotten prescription we're going to tell you about. Yeah, that's right. Pay attention to this one. This is one you forgot about. Once you start doing it, you're actually going to be a little bit healthier. Joining us now, our good friends at Native Path and the co-founder and chief culture officer there, Dr. Chad Walding. Doctor, welcome back.
Hey, John. Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
I love this topic because I have noticed it myself as I've gotten healthier the last couple of years. The more I move, the better I feel and the healthier I've become. We kind of forget about the fact that we became so sedentary, but movement is sort of a magic bullet, isn't it?
It is, we have this saying in the physical therapy world that motion is lotion. It's like greasing the groove. It's like putting oil in your joints, right?
Yeah.
You're so right. And to really understand why movement's so important, we have to understand why stagnation and sitting is such a big problem. In our modern world, it's different than the way our great grandparents used to live. They were outside most of the time doing manual labor. And now, of course, we have these phones and these screens, and we can just sit here and work from home and not go anywhere. And now we're in a situation where 90% of all our activities are done sitting still in a chair, not moving, right? And we have to discuss the changes that does in your body. For instance, there's an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase. It's responsible for clearing your bloodstream of fat. And when we sit for long periods of time, we reduce the production of that enzyme by 90%.
Wow.
And that's going to lead to our risk for heart disease. It increases our risk for heart disease by 2 to 3 times. It increases our risk for diabetes. It increases our risk for obesity. It also changes our emotional states. It messes up our posture. There's incredible studies that have been done when we sit for long periods of time with this kind of rounded shoulder, C-shaped spine, forward head, that we get when we sit for long periods of time. It changes the way we see ourselves. It changes the way others see us. So we want to get our posture up and we want to start moving, right? Moving. And one of the most simple things we can do, it's free to everybody as long as they can do it, is go outside for a walk and breathe some fresh air and get some clean, good, healthy vitamin D from the sun. And we can notice the changes that it makes in our body. But moving is so incredibly important.
Oh, yeah. Parents and grandparents, listen to this. So when I was a kid, the second I got home from school, my brother and I would go outside and we would play until it was dark outside, basketball, baseball, football, whatever we could. We hardly ever wanted to come in. We were bummed on a rainy day. Today, kids come home from school and they jump on and they play that video game for 6-7 hours. That dynamic has to be broken. What are some good pieces of advice you have for moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas to break that paradigm?
Well, the kids are going to have to start playing, and the video games are so addictive and they're so wonderful. An easy thing I would suggest is wait till the sun goes down to start playing the video games, and even be careful with that because the screens will really confuse the body. But come up with ideas and games. Buy a bicycle, go to the park, go for a hike, do things, right? Kids are getting sicker and they're getting more depressed at an early age. They're they're not actually making social connections. Play is so important for our brain and the development of a little child as they're growing up. So we've got to get outside. We want to get back to playing sports and crawling and pushing and doing all the things that these little children are designed to do, rather than just stay stuck in front of screens forever.
Talk a little bit about when once you get moving again, how college, in particular for those of us who are in their 50s now, how it can be a boost for how you feel and how you stay motivated.
Yeah, earlier we mentioned our ancestors and how much they moved relative to us. They also ate differently than us, and they ate whole, real, nutritious food that was rich in protein and it was rich in collagen, right? They would take the bones of an animal, they would put it in a big pot of water and make soups and broths, and they would get collagen in a natural part of their diet. In our modern world, because we're bombarded with refined and processed foods, we are not getting near enough protein, and within that, we're not getting near enough collagen. And collagen is so important. It's what makes up our tendons, our ligaments, even our bones, even the things we look at when we look at each other, our hair, our skin, our nails, it's all made up of collagen. And we produce collagen naturally inside of our body, but that natural production begins to decline around the age of 20. When we're in our 50s, we're making half as much as we did in our 20s. So it's really important to get enough collagen in our diet, especially as we age, so we maintain functional independence and are able to move around, right? So at Native Path, what we do is we make supplements that help fill in the gaps of what's missing in the modern diet. And really, collagen is the number one thing. It's so easy to use. It's a white, odorless powder. You can put it in your coffees. You can put it in your teas. The important thing is to use it on a consistent basis and make sure you're getting a good quality collagen, which is something we value at Native Path, is the purity in our products. So everything is the highest quality. It's third-party tested for mold and fungus and all these things that don't need to be in there. It's type 1 and type 3 collagen from bovine hide. These are cows that are eating grass and never fed hormones or antibiotics. They're healthy cows, which helps deliver a healthy product for you so you get the best results.
Yeah, I also noticed that gut health is improved, and I guess that's something I didn't think collagen dealt with. You think of the bones and the hair and the nails, but it also improves your gut, right?
Exactly. The gut lining itself, just like it makes up the bones, the tendons, and ligaments, the gut lining is made up of collagen. And when you improve the gut lining, you improve your ability to eliminate toxins, and you also improve your ability to absorb the vitamins and minerals from the food you eat. So it's a huge game changer in your overall health when you improve your gut health with collagen.
All right, so it's simple. The secret prescription: get moving and then get Native Path. Those two things, you're going to be on your way. Dr. Chad Walding, always a great honor to have you on. I look forward to this segment every week. Such a great conversation. All right, folks, if you want to get Native Path, it's real simple. We made it really simple. You go to getnativepath.com/justnews. Getnativepath.com/justnews. You'll get a special bundle deal at a fraction of the retail price plus free shipping. And keep in mind, there's over 4 million jars of this have been sold, thousands of 5-star reviews with happy customers, and a 365-day money-back guarantee. You don't get that many places anymore. This is your moment to take control of aging before it takes control of you. Go to getnativepath.com/justnews right now. All right, we'll be right back right after these messages. Welcome back, America. We're going to finish the show with some breaking news. Just a few minutes ago, Cracker Barrel announced that it is scrapping the new woke logo and going back to their old timers logo. They listened to their customers. Go woke, go broke, or go woke and reverse course. They chose the latter one. Amanda, the president weighed in on this just a few hours before this happened. I wonder if he put a little extra weight on the scale.
I mean, he basically said this is what they should do. He said if they do this, it will be a golden marketing opportunity. And I agree, because I think for a lot of people, it took a while to go back to Bud Light because they never really felt like Bud Light made things right.
Yeah.
With this was swift, it was decisive, it was very obvious why. And, you know, in all of these scenarios, John, it's typically a carrot and a stick scenario. So I think that the American people who support Cracker Barrel, support having, what's his name? Not Harold. What's the guy they named that's
The old timer?
Yeah, the old timer. They have a name for him. Anyway, if you support that, go support Cracker Barrel this week and go get their chicken pot pie or that big breakfast that has the bacon, the sausage, the grits, the eggs, the pancakes, all that good stuff. Show them.
Yeah, no,
Speak
that's
for
the
you
right
all.
way. Yeah, and people did. I mean, like I said, on Sunday when I went to the restaurant, it was so empty. Like, oh my God!
Unbelievable.
I was just curious. I had curious. I just wanted to duck in and
Yeah.
see how empty it is. It was like
I'll
really
read the
empty.
statement too. They said, "We thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen and we have. Our new logo is going away and our old timer will remain. At Cracker Barrel, it's always been and always will be about serving up delicious food, warm welcomes, and the kind of country hospitality that feels like family. As a proud American institution, our 70,000 hardworking employees look forward to welcoming you to our table soon."
I'm just going to go eat some hash brown casserole today and be happy about this. It's a good deal. It's my favorite side there. Don't tell my doctor, please, or my wife for
Their
that matter.
biscuits are
Yes.
really good too.
Oh yeah, the biscuits are great. All right, you said you could support this. I could support when journalists ask great questions, and today you did that not once but several times with the president. Folks, check out this question that Amanda asked when she was with the president today about carrying firearms in D.C.
Mr. President, regarding crime in DC, something that might help especially ladies is being able to carry. I know you've talked about reciprocal carry. Would you like for that to apply here in Washington, DC?
When you say carry, I assume you're talking about carry what we're talking
Concealed
about, right?
or, yeah.
In other words, carry a gun. Is that right? Would you like to carry a
I
gun?
would like to, yes, sir.
You'd feel a hell of a lot better, right?
I absolutely would.
I agree with you 100%, okay?
Okay, great.
But I'll tell you, within another couple of weeks, it's hard to believe what's been accomplished in 12 days, but within another couple of weeks, you won't have to carry. You're not going to have to carry. You're going to be safe. People are safe now. The turn has gone fast. I knew it was going to go fast, but this turn has gone really fast. And within a month or two, this is going to be one of the safest places in the country. I have no doubt about it. And we'll do an extension. We'll work with Congress, or I could declare an emergency, but I don't think that's going to be necessary.
Now, John, do you think if I go to a police station, or I technically go to a judge and apply for a CCW, and they say, "No, ma'am, you're a private citizen," do you think if I show them that clip and say the president endorsed the idea, can I have it? You think it'll
No,
work?
it won't. They're pretty stubborn in this city. But listen, I think something's afoot here, and I think the president is leaning into something. And I think your question gave us a really great sense of where his head is. He wants to make it safe enough you don't carry a gun, but he also understands why people want to carry a gun. And this is a city that should reflect the rest of the country. Constitutional carries all over the country, except in the nation's capital and a few other blue cities, obviously. You had another good one. I like this one about all the Dem mayors who don't want to fix crime in their city. Take a look at this one, guys.
Also in other blue cities, you've got Karen Bass in Los Angeles, Brandon Johnson in Chicago. It seems to be very popular here, the fact that people can walk around, go to restaurants, shop, not
Yeah.
have to worry about their safety. If blue city mayors oppose those efforts in their cities, do you anticipate that Democrat voters are going to take it out on them at the
I
ballot?
think so. I think that crime is going to be a big thing. And we are the party, the Republicans are the party that wants to stop crime. We're against crime. The Democrats like crime. I don't know why. They're against crime prevention. You can't do that.
Yeah, you can't be against fighting crime. You just can't. It's like the concrete rule of politics.
Yeah. And President Trump, one of the things he talked about, and there was a piece of a question that I asked him again after this one about this, but he said that he saw a Democrat strategist on TV this morning saying, "It's a trap, it's a trap. He has set another trap." And I asked him, I said, was it a trap? Was it intentional? But, you know, when you oppose what Donald Trump is doing when it comes to cleaning up crime and making the city safer, that puts you on the unsafe, more crime side. And that's just not good. But I had another question. We didn't have time to clip it. Maybe we'll use it tomorrow. I'll give you a little tease. I made the whole cabinet laugh.
Oh, wow.
So
How about that?
we can use that tomorrow. Okay, John, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged. What do you think?
Yeah, I do know that. I'm sorry. Yeah, my cultural literacy is not that bad.
They
It's pretty
are
close, but yeah, how about that? That's good. It was one of the #1 trending stories on Just the News, which I'm surprised. I'm glad we
Our
covered
audience
it.
is not exactly a Taylor Swift kind of crowd.
No, but James Comey is probably celebrating. James Comey's probably celebrating today with some new song of hers that he's listening to. I'll tell you one thing. Tomorrow morning, this story that Stephen and I have on the private email problem that the FBI had. They had a private email problem while they were investigating Hillary Clinton. Can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, why does this always seem to happen? All right, so President Trump stays busy. As you know, when I went to Los Angeles, it was because I thought that it would be slow, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
President Trump will likely be heading off to Bedminster this weekend.
Yeah.
Still will be conducting business. And anytime this happens, I think back to former President Joe Biden, his presidency, when he would check out and go to Delaware. Nobody heard from him. Nobody had any idea what he was doing. He was
Oh,
definitely
you're going to hear
not.
from Donald Trump.
Oh, yes. We'll
Yeah.
hear from him all weekend.
Slow is not a word that will be in Bedminster. I promise you that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, here's a word we're going to give you. You're in for the next hour because you're going over to Grand Stinch We'll be back tomorrow night.